How's it going, everybody? Welcome into the chat. About to get started. Um, Trying to get everything figured out. Trying to do a couple new things today. Uh, so be sure to let me know what you think, any advice, and what you're doing today. Um, I It's actually been a really good day. It's like the first sunny day that we've had in a very long time. So I am super excited about that. I actually tried to nap outside, but the sun actually drove me back in because I was afraid I was going to get sunburned. Um, well, there you go. So, getting started here in a second, I will be editing an episode of Your Killer Life. It's a podcast from a breast cancer survivor talking to other survivors and caregivers and just everybody in that space. Really excited about that show. Episode 0 is ready to go. Should be launching pretty soon. Um, and then today we're actually going to be working on episode 2. I tried to edit episode 1 the last time I went live, and I had issues with the volume that kind of frustrated me. Plus, a lot of other things were going on. Um, Finally figured out what was going on, so we are moving on to episode 2, and that's what we're going to be working on today. So if you're in here, say hi, let me know what you're working on, and if you have any questions, so I'm going to be working in Reaper. So if you have any questions about Reaper or podcasting in general or anything really, feel free to just have some fun, chill, and enjoy some podcasting. So I'm checking a couple things right now, trying to make sure everything's working. So I'm trying to stream to a couple places, and that frustrated me last time, but I think I got it figured out. Um, so if everything's working all right, just let me know. If not, well, I don't know what to do about it. Alrighty, so the first thing I'm going to get into um, is going to be just kind of bounce. I like to bounce out the audio at the very beginning. Just makes the editing process easier. So let's get into it. Oh, some new things. So closed captioning, so everybody can follow along. And So if you need to mute it or whatever. And then also my little mouse and keyboard. So that's the section of the keyboard that I use the most. Um, so you can kind of follow along and see what I'm doing.
And they used a cuff, an automated cuff that was too small for me. Bruised my arm, and the blood pressure that they were going to chart was so high that I looked at dealer present in the quote unquote healthy breast, and that it is a frustration for patients to get, because now you have to advocate with your insurance companies.
Oh, that's annoying. So I have my effects menu pulled up, but it's not showing up. Let me see if I can. Get that added so everybody can see it. Because it doesn't show up as a window. Well, that's annoying. Well, I'm using Vocal Writer right now.
I want an MRI because it doesn't always show up on ultrasound, and it's a pain to get them to approve it. So do your research, definitely. And 9, understand your right. Bring your journal with your notes and make sure that you do research on things you want to discuss. So there are so many questions I had along the way. I think back to probably making the decision about having a bilateral or unilateral mastectomy. And in the world of breast cancer, there's all kinds of opinions on this. So, and again, you can ask them to retake your blood pressure. At the terrible primary care appointment here locally that I told you I had, they actually bruised my arm, and they used a cuff, an automated cuff that was too small for me. Bruised my arm, and the blood pressure that they were going to chart
doing, some compression
was so high that I looked.
Balance out the volume.
Sit down and think about, what are my goals for this appointment? What symptoms do I want to discuss? What concerns do I want to have addressed? What questions do I want answered? Bring your journal with your notes and make sure that you do research on things you want to discuss. So there are so many questions I had along the way. I think back to probably making the decision about having a bilateral or unilateral mastectomy. And in the world of breast cancer, there's all kinds of opinions on this. So, and again, depending on the type of cancer you have, that will probably make it vary a little bit. So with lobular tends to be bilateral, tends to not show up on mammogram, doesn't even always show up on an MRI. As I'd done my research, I was able to have that conversation with my general surgeon. Now, my gynecologist was encouraging me to just get a referral for one of the plastic surgery consults, which that's always the best when somebody says, hey, my provider was great. My integrative oncology team was a referral, right? And it's sort of like this secret, not so secret club. Once you're diagnosed,
so I think I pretty much get it balanced out. So even that doesn't show up. Okay. So in Reaper, I can render the track to a new track, and it'll apply all the functions, because I like to see the waveform and just kind of make sure everything looks right. So that's what I'm going to do now. So even though you can't see it, it's rendering a file. So that's going to take about a minute and a half. So we wait. And the cool thing about this Noah board is what it's called. So if you're interested in using it for your own stream, is you can see how I'm moving my mouse, going up and down, side to side, around and around. Oh, that's a fun little thing.
Hello and welcome to Your Killer Life, a podcast where we talk about the really real realities of a killer diagnosis like breast cancer with a focus on health, hope, and happiness. I'm your host, Tammy Grable Woodford, and in February of 2015, I was diagnosed with stage 3B micrometastatic estrogen and progesterone positive infiltrating lobular carcinoma. That is such a mouthful. Episode. Hello. A podcast where we talk about these realities of a Hello and welcome to Your Killer Life, a podcast where we talk about Your Killer Life, a podcast where we talk about the really real realities of a killer diagnosis like breast cancer with a focus on health, hope, and happiness. I'm your host, Tammy Grable Woodford, and in February of 2015, I was diagnosed with stage 3B micrometastatic estrogen and progesterone positive infiltrating lobular carcinoma. That is such a mouthful. Stage 3B micrometastatic estrogen and progesterone micrometastatic estrogen and progesterone micrometastatic estrogen and progesterone positive infiltrating lobular carcinoma. That is such a mouthful. That is such a mouthful. And on today's episode, we are going to be talking about the importance of patient advocacy and after cancer. And after cancer diagnosis, sometimes you're provided with a nurse navigator. Sometimes you're provided. Sometimes you're provided. Sometimes diagnosis, sometimes you're provided diagnosis, sometimes you're provided with a nurse navigator. Sometimes you're provided with an advocate of sorts. Sometimes you'll have a family member who will step into that role with you or for you. And sometimes it's a close friend, and then other times it's you and you're the person that is sort of placed into that advocacy role. So today I'm sort of placed is it's you, and you're the person that is sort of placed into that advocacy role. So today I'm going to share 3 stories, and I have so many examples from my own breast cancer journey, but I'm going to share from my own breast cancer journey. But I'm going to share a couple of personal stories and then 10 tips for really being your own best advocate. Best advocate when it comes to navigating the wild, wacky world of healthcare. The wild, wacky world of healthcare, as it were. So there's 3 examples.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Yes, I did have my my microphone on mute for the face cam portion. Okay, so let me just say all that again. Though the closed captioning should still be working, so you can probably follow along there. But I was saying that I'm in a mastermind, and so every other week we'll be live streaming our mastermind session, and those will go out as a audio only podcast. And so the last one, Brian Insminger, he's in the mastermind, he edited the last episode on stream. He uses Hindenburg. So if you just want to watch like multi-stream editing, you can probably check out his. I don't know if it's still up on YouTube, but it should still be up on his Facebook page. So it's going to be top tier audio. Same thing for YouTube, just search for top tier audio. Awesome, it's working. Cool. But in the future, I could possibly. So the idea is we're going to have a guest on every week, and they edit the previous week's episode. So if there is a week that we don't have a guest on, I could do that editing and show the multi-track. So it'll be like 2 to 4. But this show, Your Killer Life, I will occasionally have a guest on. So episode 3, as I just showed, is with her and Griff. So if I end up doing that one on stream, you can kind of see the 2-track, multi-track on that episode. So yeah. So let me know like if you guys want to see that. I can try to work that out. And I also still need to work on her intro. I just need to take her voiceover and do the music bed. So if I get around to it, I'll probably do that later on today. So let me know if that's something you want to see as well.
So there's 3 examples, actually, that I did want to talk about. And the very first one is the very first appointment. So with my initial appointment to the gynecologist, I had noticed that I had some changes to. So there's 3 examples, actually, that I did want to talk about. And the very first one is the very first appointment. So with my initial appointment to the gynecologist, I had noticed that I had some changes to my left breast. So they were subtle. They weren't huge. I had, as I mentioned in the kickoff episode, I had gotten really healthy in my life. And so part of me was thinking really healthy in my life. And so part of me was thinking, well, it's just weight loss and whatever. And then
oh, and I was saying earlier, I have a chat function in the stream, but since I'm like, if you are commenting in the Reaper for Podcasting group, since it is a private group, I can't show the comments, like they don't come through, but I can still read them because I got the stream open. Right on my podcast is my wife and I in studio with a remote guest, and then our sound clips from the sound pad. Oh, awesome. Okay, so Michelle, my wife, we did a football podcast. So I think I mentioned it on the first stream, but there was a local football team, if you guys know the Alliance of American Football, that went under last year. We did a podcast on the local team here in Memphis, and we had a soundboard on my phone that we'd plug into my H6 Zoom recorder and do it that way. But we're actually going to be starting a new show soon. We're in the planning stages, so that'll be coming out. But it's just like another podcast about podcasting. So I'm sure a lot of you probably wouldn't be interested in it, especially because it's geared towards like our ideal clients. But Dean, what is your and it's so cool because like there's something appealing about a husband wife, like a couple podcast that if your chemistry clearly is well enough to create a marriage, that it really kind of comes across in a podcast. So it's really cool that you guys are doing that. What is your podcast about? And leave a link. I know I normally don't allow self-promotion in the group, but I'll make an exception this time.
Whatever. And then it went on long enough and the changes continued enough that I kind of got this, sixth sense, I guess.
Okay.
Sixth sense.
So Dean says that his podcast is about Letterkenny. Yeah, my wife and I fell in love with that show. And then we couldn't get through like the most recent season, annoyingly. It was kind of like, in our opinion, it was kind of falling off. But like the first couple seasons were hilarious, and then it just kind of got worse and worse. Like the last season, we're just gonna get through. I think it was like in the bar scene where they just kept saying like nut again and again, like in different ways. Just kind of like that little shtick they do, and it's just like, I don't know, it was too much for us. Not that like we're against vulgarity or anything. It was just like not a good joke, and it's just,
I don't know, sixth sense, I guess, that said, you know what, things are not right. And so I scheduled an appointment with the doctor. And so I scheduled an appointment with the doctor. And in that appointment, it was a new provider to me. It was a new gynecologist. I hadn't seen him before. Was talking with him about how the breast had changed. And most of the time when you think of and most of the time when you think about breast cancer, you're often told,
oh, season 7 was rough, but 8 was really good. So which one had that nut episode? Have they come out with a new episode? Or a new season, I'm sorry? That episode dropped today. Okay, cool. How are you now?
to look.
Even like their one-liners, they're just so good. I've like been meaning to kind of like start watching it again and see if the episodes get any better, and then kind of report back to Michelle and see if she would want to start watching it again. So I might try that.
To look for lumps, look for redness, look for heat. Like there's all of these things to look for. And I didn't have things to look for. And
the compression is
look for. And I didn't have.
You guys have any tips on how to avoid like this
for? And I didn't
massive breasts when using compression. Let me know.
Have the
as long as it's not a gate. I hate noise gates.
Typical symptoms. I
never get good results with them.
Symptoms. What I had instead was an inverted nipple. So my nipple had retracted. One breast was slightly firmer. One breast was slightly firmer and smaller than the other. And I mean, so subtle that if you weren't me, you wouldn't even notice it. And you wouldn't even notice it. And I had a slight dimple, which you wouldn't even, and I had a slight dimple, and I had a slight I'm
going to come back to that because I think.
And I had a slight.
I want to check like the raw and see if that is in the recording or if maybe. Because I do all my like cleanup and everything in RX6 and then bring it into Reaper. So I'm going to go check the raw and see if something I did causes that weird.
And I had a
weird little thing or not.
And I had a slight dimple.
But I can go back to this one and know it's not the compression doing it.
And I had a slight
whatever.
And I had a slight dimple, and I had a slight dimple. And I had a slight dimple. And I had a slight dimple.
I might be able to like
I had a slight and I had a slight and I had a slight and I had a slight I had a slight I had a slight dimple, which you wouldn't even notice. Again, unless it's you, and unless.
So this one I don't want to drop the breath down so much because that breath says a lot. There's a lot of emotion in it, but it's just a little too loud for my liking. So I'm just going to drop it down a little bit.
Again, unless it's you.
And an interview with Taylor Johnson, really? Connor, the gas mask wearing skid, and Jess, the hockey player. Oh, okay. I might have to like check out your podcast now because that sounds awesome. RX-7. So I haven't been convinced that RX-7 is worth the upgrade from RX-6. I have RX-6 standard, and I just don't really feel like spending the money to upgrade to 7 if it's pretty much the same thing, maybe slightly better. It tend not to take breaths out. I don't take them out. Well, I take some out. It just kind of depends. But and I need to. It's something I need to kind of like put more thought into, um, because since I am editing a lot, that's my job. I'm much more attuned to it. So like even watching TV, like I hear every breath. Um, so it's just my hearing is like much more fine tuned, I guess is the right word for it. I don't know. So I need to kind of see like where I want to go with that. Do I want to just leave them as is with post compression? Because a lot of times, like I'll have Michelle listen to something. If there's an edit I'm not sold on, if I don't think it's natural enough, I'll have her listen and see if it is good enough because she doesn't have that trained ear. She's not like listening in for those fine points. So the average listener is going to they're not going to pick up the little things that I will. And a lot of times, like, I'll hear a breath that I just do not like, but like, it's just nothing to her. So I need to that's something I want to work on to see like where I want to be with that. Do I just want to leave the breath as is? Carrie Caulfield Eric had a talk a while ago, like everyone breathes, like, and I don't take breaths out, like I said, but I just need to kind of figure out, do I just want to leave them as is, or if I still want to kind of bring them down a little bit. Most of my editing is noise getting or noise gating, mic bleed, and background guest noises, or guest background noises. Yeah. So maybe I'll show, like, I'm not confident like in my engineering side of things, so like the EQing and whatnot. So I'm not comfortable showing that on stream. But typically, I'll do like a couple passes of a noise reduction and like mouth declick and deplosive and whatnot. So like the background noise gets to me. Shot from my time in the artillery and playing in bands. I don't have the best hearing. I have tinnitus, so it's like that constant ringing. So sometimes, like if I edit with headphones for long periods of time, like when I stop editing with these headphones, like it's just like that's all I hear, and I have to like take them off just to kind of like keep my sanity. But I didn't have any artillery. I did go to concerts a lot in high school. My friends are in a band, so I had to go to all those noise. Okay, so noise gating, yeah. I never have luck. I never have luck with noise gating. Either like what I want to take out, because like it'll leave like little peaks. So like if there's just like a little bit of background noise, like gets a gate. If I get the gate to where it cuts that out, then it's cutting out like the beginning and ends of speech. But if I lower it so the speech isn't affected, I'm still left with all the little bits. So when it comes to an interview, so I'll show you one I've been working on. I just cut out the dead air. And Reaper has a feature called, I think it's auto split is what it's called. Yeah, auto trim / split items. So I used to just run that and it'll cut all the silence parts. So it's processing now. Oh, you can't even see this anyway. So I hit Alt S and it brought up like the auto trim menu. I think is Alt S by default. I don't know if that's something that I set up myself, but it's processing now and you'll see it once it's done. But I don't like noise gating because don't have good luck with it. So I end up just cutting all the dead air. And I find that's just a lot easier and maintains my sanity. But that's the auto split. That's what that does. Cool little feature. RX-7 is your first. Paying for it as I go. Oh, nice. I've thought about doing that because I really want to get the advanced, but it's like $1,200, and I know I'll get a discount since I like just for upgrading, but it's still not justifying for me. I know. I need to learn. Okay, so Dean says he uses spectral denoise in RX-7. I need to learn how to do that. I've played with it a little bit. So you're not going to be able to see this anyway. Oh, spectral. Okay, yeah. So I've played with it a little bit. I really want to take Chris Curran's podcast engineering school. That's like my next big thing that I really want to kind of save up for and learn all that. I hear very good things about his course.
Hello and welcome.
Where am I at?
Again, unless...
Oh, Dean, if you want to... So I talked... Somebody... Yeah, let me get my thoughts straight. Somebody had brought up the idea of like collaborating with these live streams. So I think I want to have like other people come on and we can talk Reaper. But RX-7 or RX, that might be a cool thing to kind of like, if you want to hop on a live stream sometime and kind of showcase spectral denoise, I would be down with that.
Again, unless it's you,
or if any Reaper users want to hop on a live stream at some point and kind of show us what you do in Reaper, that'd be pretty dope.
I guess that's sort of the moral of some of this story today, is that paying attention to your own body, because you live in it 24/7. You're the expert, literally the resident expert when it comes to yourself. An expert. Resident expert when it comes to yourself. So with no,
I will definitely, whenever a lot of people, whenever they like first say something, they have the like little noise. I definitely take that out. Like all mouth noises just get to me. I don't like it. And if I can't take it out, I will. And that's why I love the mouth declick feature in RX.
So with no lump, no heat, no redness, no pain, none of those symptoms, went to see the doctor. Went to see the doctor, and at the exam, after he palpated and he did.
Totally awesome. Message me at some point, and then we'll set that up. So let me know when you're available. Really want to get your editing technique stronger and faster.
Did the breast exam. He stepped back and he said, I don't.
So I've been waffling on, I had the idea of doing a course. And I've been waffling how I want to go about that. But I do want to showcase kind of like my technique and just kind of like what I do. Because one thing coming from Audacity, it was really easy to highlight and delete. And natively, like Reaper isn't really set up for that. And so it took me a long time to actually figure out how to do it. And I get my program set up so that way, in kind of the way I want to do it. And just doing that saves a lot of time.
I don't feel anything.
Because I have it set up so like whenever you highlight and hit C, it deletes what is highlighted.
I don't feel anything. Really I don't really see anything. Are you sure that your nipple has not always been in? Went to see the doctor, and at the exam, after he palpated and he did the breast exam, he stepped back and he said, I don't feel anything. I don't really see anything. Are you sure that your nipple has not?
And if we're going faster, so normally I don't edit in real time. I'm doing it now because I have a lot going on, so I need to like focus more on what I'm doing. But one thing that I will do is on your transport bar, If you right click on the rate, preserve pitch and audio items when changing master play rate, click that on. And I typically edit at 1.5 speed.
He did the breast exam. He stepped back and he said, I don't feel anything. I don't really see anything. Are you sure that your nipple has not always been inverted? This was the first crossroad. So I could have accepted.
And it's a lot quicker to get through. For the live stream, I'm going to do it real time just so I don't miss anything.
Accepted.
Like that little.
Accepted.
And that's something I kind of had to work towards. It's just slowly increasing it. And then it kind of depends on who. So if it's somebody that naturally talks faster, I can't do 1.5. And some people I could go up to like 2 times. Though I almost never do that. I typically stick with 1.5 at the max. Accepted
his statement as truth, that he didn't see anything. Everything seemed fine. And
Sorry, probably should have gone away from the mic to swallow.
And I could have left that appointment. But I knew that things had been changing, and not just that.
And a lot of times, so most of my clients are solo shows and they're delivering information. So I'll take out like a lot of these long pauses. But with her, because there is such an emotional aspect to this, I'm going to leave that in because that pregnated pause carries a lot with it.
But I knew that things had been changing, and not just that they had changed, but that they were changing. The dimple was getting big, changing. The dimple.
And to be honest, I'll probably go through this episode again just because I know I'm probably missing something. Or I might have my VA do it.
Was getting bigger, the breast was getting firmer, and like I said, subtle as it wasn't this static change. I knew things were changing. So even though okay? You could argue and say,
I know it can be annoying if if my mic isn't loud enough or vice versa. So let me know if the audio is okay.
Static change. I knew things were changing. So even though you could argue and say, I could have just accepted what I wanted to hear, which was everything is fine, I knew it wasn't. So he went. I knew it wasn't.
All right, so Dean asks, "What is the edit? What's that edit where you're reducing the breadth?" Okay, so this is a chain I have set up. So the first thing, with my workflow is I have the raw, like the original pre-compression that's a little bit quieter on the breaths, and then the native or like the post-compression. So they're one on top of the other. So I have an action chain that it splits. So I highlight and it'll split on the ends and then drop everything down one track. And I have that set to Z. So highlight, click, it drops everything down. I also have one set up for X. So like, let's say in this case, this is an and so I delete that. And then I can split this side and then hit X to drop it down without worrying about highlighting and splitting. So to set that up, if you go into your actions and show action list, okay. So normally this is a freestanding thing, but you can't see that. So I'm going to dock it so it shows up on stream. Yeah. Oh, let me move this over real quick. So let me know if you can see that all right. So it's this right here. I made a custom one. Let me edit. Okay. Does that show up? No, it does not. Let me. Okay, so I can't. Let me think how I can do this. Okay, let me do it this way. Display capture. Okay, there we go. So here is the action list. So you can either create new and it'll bring it up. So I'm going to edit to show you what I did. So select all items in the current time selection, which is the highlighted sections, and then I split it. So the select all items is the region, or like the big thing. So it selects that one because otherwise it won't work. Split it at the time selection, so the beginning and end, and then item edit, move item envelope points down one track. So that way I highlight something and hit Z, everything that's highlighted gets dropped down one. Two track cut. This is something I did for interviews. I don't remember how it works. Oh, that's right. So that's how I can delete an item, even if I have verbal delete turned on, and it won't affect anything else. So if that's something you need, let me know. Does that make sense? Did I explain that properly? Well enough? Looks good. Okay, hopefully you're talking about.
He didn't see anything. Everything seemed fine.
So and the other way you can do it. So this is with like the pre and post compression. This is a technique I learned from Emily Prokop. So be sure to check her out. She's amazing. She uses Reaper as well. So what she did is she'll just have like her main like editing track, and then she'll have this track below it, but like drop down like 15 or 20 dB. So that way, whenever she drops it down one, it's still that breath, but it's just a lot quieter. Does that make sense? I can probably demonstrate that better if I need to.
Changing. The dimple was getting bigger, the breast was getting firmer. And like I said, subtle as it wasn't this static change. I knew things were changing. So even though you could argue and say, I could have just accepted what I wanted to hear, which was everything is fine. I knew it wasn't. So he went back. He did another exam. He was a little more aggressive.
Yeah, learning how to do actions is amazing because I have Z set up so it splits and drops. X drops. C is like a specialized ripple delete. A I just have set up for delete. S is split, and D is like deleting an item without affecting anything else with ripple delete. And it's all like right here, and you can see like on my, my on-screen keyboard, like everything is right there in that bottom left, so I can keep my hand. I don't have to move my hand at all, and I can keep my right hand on my mouse, left hand on the keyboard, and then control space to pause and space to stop, and all that's like right there, so I don't have to move around too much. Makes it really nice. I just really need to learn more from folks like you. Learning the actions is not something I've picked up much. Do you have SWS?
He was a little more aggressive with it, and he says to me, I don't know, maybe, a little more aggressive with it, and he says to me, I don't know, a little more aggressive with it, and he says to me, I don't know.
Here's some kind of like maybe rustling in the background there.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. Maybe there's something under the nipple at 2:00, but I'll go ahead and order the mammogram and I'll order the ultrasound at the same time, just in case.
Have you read the article? It's on Podigy.com. Riley wrote it about how to like get started with the Reaper and set up the SWS, because that's how my delete would see. Like I learned how to do that from his articles. Have you read that article?
They want to do it and then you have it there. A few days later, I was told I had cancer, and a lot of it. That was my first experience. I was told I had cancer, and a lot of it.
I can hear.
I was told I had cancer, and a lot of it.
Something weird. Okay. I'll post it in the group, Dean, after I get done the stream. But it's a really good article. The guy is really, really smart.
I was told I had cancer, and a lot of it.
I may be able to get him on the live stream and go over some stuff. Maybe he can actually go through his article. That'd be awesome.
That was my first. Told I had cancer. Told I had cancer, and a lot of. Told I had cancer, and a lot of it.
So that's something else I want to check out and go back to the raw.
Told I had cancer, and a lot of it.
And see if.
Told I had cancer.
Because I might be able to like EQ that out, or if I go back into the raw and it's not there, and I screw something up when I was processing everything, I can probably undo that. But I might go back and just like see if I can EQ that out.
That was my.
I got into Reaper because of Mike Delgadio. Okay, he's awesome. I listened to the No Sleep podcast, and he's a voice artist on that show. I've been meaning to go through his series on getting started. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. And use the tips he gave. Was it good? I'd imagine like he knows what he's talking about. A lot of people, when I see like when Reaper comes up, a lot of people recommend his YouTube channel. And if you don't know it, and you guys, anybody here using Reaper, check out his channel. It's called Booth Junkie. So I'm sure there's a lot of good information there.
My first same time, just in case they want to do it, and then you have it there. A few days later, I was told I had cancer, and a lot of it. That was my first.
I might actually try. So I have Nectar Elements. I'm wondering. Oh, crap. If this could clean it up.
A few days later, I was told I had cancer, and a lot of it. More aggressive with it. And he says to me, I don't know, maybe there's something under the nipple at 2:00, but I'll go ahead and order the mammogram and I'll order the ultrasound at the same time, just in case they want to do it. And then you have it there.
Like a video series.
A few days later, I was told I had cancer, and a lot of it.
For podcasting. It's because there's not a lot of
That was my first.
I'll talk after I'm done doing
my
this.
first experience with navigating and being my own advocate in this process. And it's a scary one. And it can be kind of hard to step into that role. And you can feel like you don't know what you're talking about. But again, you're the resident expert when it comes to yourself and knowing what feels right and what doesn't feel right. I was diagnosed stage 3B. Imagine if I hadn't advocated. If I had accepted everything looks okay. I might not be here today.
I can actually just mute this.
The ultrasound appointment was the...
I love all his videos. He's a voice artist, and your shows are interview-oriented. Okay. So what issues are you having that like what he's doing doesn't apply to your interview shows? And I want to do like like a YouTube series on, and it's why I started this group Reaper for podcasting, is because there's a lot of great channels like the Reaper blog and Reaper Mania that have a lot of really good information about Reaper, but there's so much that Reaper can do that as podcast editors we just don't need. And so I want to create like a series on how, on just taking it down to just what you need for podcasting and just taking all that information and stripping out what we don't need. So there's like a good resource, because Reaper is amazing for podcasting. It's fantastic, but it's just typically not really thought of when it comes to using it for podcasting. And it's always like Audacity, Audition, Pro Tools, Logic. Reaper is like not always in that list. And part of it is because there's just not a lot of good resources out there. But like you can't beat it for the price and for what it can do. It's amazing. So I'm working on kind of coming up with resources for podcasters. Which is why I want to do like these collaborative live streams. It's just because I know there's so many people in this group, Reaper for Podcasting group, that know a lot about Reaper. And I want to kind of like just take our collective knowledge and create a resource for newbies. Voice acting requires a lot more focus on the quality of the voice and having a very low noise floor, so more of it's handling mic bleed between me and my wife. Okay. Yeah, a lot of that's going to come down to your recording space. Is trying to like eliminate as much as possible. Because I don't know if you were around for Okay, so this seems to stop working. So let me find like a good. There we go, right here. Go. Excuse me. I'm assuming that you are recording on separate tracks whenever you record with your wife, because that's key. And then just kind of setting up. So I don't know if you were here whenever I was editing the first episode of this, episode 1 of this podcast, because it's two people in the same room and they're sitting side by side, and so they have to like turn and look at each other. So their mics were like, I might be able to. Open recent. So as you can see, like there's a ton of crossbleed. And so I'll have to go through and eliminate a lot of that. Separate tracks for everyone. Okay, perfect. So yeah, and a lot of it is there's just like not much you can do. Are you serious? You. Oh, okay. So that might be. That might have something to do with it. It helps if I put it on the right track. Can you tell I'm a professional? How do you record your guest, your remote guest? How do you do that recording? There we go. Now it's working. And you couldn't see it on stream, but I have my Nectar pulled up. Let me see if I can. There we go. So let's see if.
They may say that they got it all, but the reality is you still, in your mind, are living with this thought that at any moment it's going to happen again. That was my first experience with navigating and being my own advocate in this process. And it's a scary one. And it can be kind of hard to step into that role. And it's a scary one. And it can be kind of hard to step into that role. And you can feel like you don't know what you're talking about. But again, you're the resident expert when it comes to yourself.
I'm not thrilled with that. So I'll probably kind of play around with that and see if I can find something.
My first experience with navigating my first experience with navigating and being my own advocating and being my own advocate in this process. In this process.
Bring them in via Squadcast, but actually plug that audio straight into the board instead of using Squadcast recording. Do you see any degradation from... Like, have you compared the Squadcast recording to what you're recording in your board? And is there any difference there? And a lot of it, like, you know, it's garbage in, garbage out, as Steve Stewart always says. So, like, you can have the best equipment, like, best recording setup in the world, but if they're using, you know, their laptop microphone, it's not going to sound good. So just making sure that your guests have good mics, at least as best you can. And what some people do is they'll actually ship a mic to their guest. Like they'll get like an Audio-Technica 2100 or something and ship it to their guest. And their guest can use it for the interview and then have like return postage already and then ship it back. Not recently. Okay. What do you, do me a favor, Dean, because I can only help you so much like this. If you could share, like, don't share like a link to your show, but share in like the group itself, like create a new post and share like a snippet of your audio, and then we can kind of listen to it and see, you know, hear what we hear. So a lot of times it's their gaming headset. Yeah. What's crazy, I had the Apple earbuds with like the microphone on the cord. That actually is really good. I had a client who she would use her earbuds to record her podcast, and she was like get under a blanket and record it that way, and it sounded fantastic. It's a little more sensitive to like mouth pops and clicks, but for earbuds, like, it was fantastic. And so if you don't have video, then one way is like to do that and just like have them hold the microphone kind of close to them. That actually is kind of probably not a great idea, because chances are they're not going to be holding it in the same spot. But yeah, a lot of people want to use gaming headsets. I don't get it. It's like, it's not good, but yeah, so send that snippet in. I hear my wife moving around and think she's starting dinner. So I'm actually going to end this stream here and go help with that. So thanks everybody for hanging out. Let me know what you thought of it and what you want to see next time. If there's anything specifically that you want to see, we can go over it. And if you are interested in streaming with me, so if you use Reaper, so this is mainly for people in the Reaper for Podcasting group, or actually, hell, if you are just like in podcasting in general and you want to do a stream together and we can talk about whether it's like different things in Reaper or just like podcasting in general, feel free to send me a DM or like message me somehow. My website is rothmedia.audio, so if you want to send me a message there, that'd be cool. Just let me know what you want to see, what you need help with, anything that we can do, show you visually, you know, on the stream. Let us know what you want to see, and I will see that it happens. Anyway, thanks everyone. Oh, Brian says, gotta be careful with the earbuds, mics in front of the mouth, lots of plosives. Yeah, that's one thing to watch out for. Trying to get it out of that Airstream. but it's probably better than a laptop microphone, maybe. I'm cooking too, says Dean. See you next time. Yeah, I'm not sure when I'll do this again, but just, keep an eye out. I'll try to announce it the best I can. Anyway, I'm rambling at this point. I got nothing else to say. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.